friends. Today I'm doing another review. It will be about The Neverending Story by Michael Ende. It was later turned into a rather popular 80s children's movie, but this is about the book, not the movie. Yes. So, The Neverending Story is sort of a portal fantasy slash story within a story type book. It starts out with our main protagonist. His name is Bastian Balthazar Books. And he is a chubby little kid who gets bullied and picked on. He loves reading, he loves books, but he generally just isn't very talented. He's like struggling in all of his school classes academically. I don't know how else you could struggle in classes, but whatever. And he is picked on because he's not very athletic, or really he seems like he's one of those people who seems like they're not talented at anything. Of course, nobody's not talented at anything, but it's the picture that's painted at the beginning. So he finds this book called The Neverending Story, and he is so enthralled by this idea of a book that will never end because he loves reading and he just wants to keep reading and keep reading. And the idea of a story that's never going to end and just leave him without the story continuing is very exciting for him. And so we follow him reading this story. And the story within the story is about a young boy as well. They are both 10 years old, Bastian and this one. This character's name is Atreyu. He, however, is very different. He is a warrior. He has been trained to be a hunter in his tribe. His culture is very inspired, seems to be inspired by Native Americans. And he is very fast. He is very strong. He is a warrior, a hunter. And so we follow him on his journey to save his world. The world is called Fantastica, and the problem is that the ruler of Fantastica, who is called the Childlike Empress, is very sick. And for some reason, at the same time, Fantastica is disappearing. It's not like darkness is taking over. It's not anything like that. There's just nothing replacing it. Just all throughout Fantastica. And so Atreyu is on this journey to find out, and then Bastian is reading about it. And kind of gets very absorbed in the story. So yes, that's the synopsis. So the plot itself, I would actually consider the weak point of this book. While initially it sounds very interesting, this journey to find out what's wrong with the childlike empress and to fix it, at some point, I would say about midway through, it just becomes a series of side quests, it seems like. Almost like the author was just very proud of his world and was like, okay, well, let's just throw the characters over here and let's just throw them over here. Let's just put them in random places with random situations. And in the context of the story, it makes sense. But at the same time, it was very frustrating for me to read. It almost felt, it reminded me a little bit of the Odyssey, Homer's The Odyssey, if you've ever read that, where it was like this quest was a thing and then just things kept coming up. And like I said, it makes sense. Like, it's internally consistent, but it still was not enjoyable for me because it just got very tedious. Just okay, well, we're trying to do this thing to, save Fantastica, save Childlike Empress, and all this stuff. And things just kept coming up. And the plot kind of, at this point, the plot kind of changes anyways. And the goal becomes different. And it just becomes very frustrating and tedious. I actually ended up having to take a break at this point and read a short story about just a completely different short story just to give myself a break because it was so very tedious to get through. But it's other aspects of the story to make up for it, including the world building. I think that part of the reason why the plot was so all over the place was because the world building was so good, and it seemed like the author was very proud of the world building, and I understand that because it seemed like Fantastica had such an interesting just premise to begin with, just base level premise. The entire world of Fantastica kind of has a symbiotic relationship with our world, and I thought that was really cool. I won't go too much into it because spoilers, but it just seemed very interesting to me. And then on top of that, just all of the world, every setting, every culture was very interesting, and it definitely had an absurdist element to it at times, but I really enjoyed the world building. It was just frustrating because it was almost like we're just going all over the world. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about the plot because I'm talking about the world building. The world building was great, and I really, really did enjoy the world building. I wish that this wasn't the only book in this world, because another thing that kind of, I guess, lended to the world building for me was often the author would talk about certain characters and certain events and very vaguely touch on them and be like, but that's a different story and that will be told at a different time. And this happened several times throughout the book, and to me it kind of made it seem like, oh, okay, well, that's really neat, because it made it, all of those characters and all those events, seem more real. Okay, yeah, this is a thing that happened, but we're not going into that. And it was a fun sort of little way just to be like, yep, there's more to this world, I promise. And but yeah, so I really did enjoy the world building as a whole. Now the characters. Okay, so Bastian Balthazar Books is a little butt munch. I cannot think of a better way to express my feelings towards him. He has a very good character arc. I can say that for sure. But there was a large portion. I'm sorry if you can hear my cat running around, by the way. She has a little bell on her collar and she's just going crazy. Anyways, he has a very good character arc, but for a good percentage of the book, I just wanted to grab the kid by the shoulders and shake him and be like, what are you doing? Just because he is very dramatic from the very beginning. He has this book and he's like, oh, it's a never-ending story. And even though he can clearly see it's a book, he's like, it'll never end. And I'm like, uh-huh, okay, yeah, that's a logical conclusion. But he's just very dramatic and very frustrating at times. Then there is Atreyu, who is kind of just, he's a good boy. He's a warrior. He's strong and brave and good. He still makes mistakes, and I appreciate that. At times, how he handles relationships with other people, he doesn't go about it in the best way. And so having, I guess, those little flaws make him more of a relatable character to me. And I just enjoyed him, though, because even though he has flaws, he is still very pure. And So Atreyu was definitely a character that I wish I had seen more of, because even though the story is about Atreyu, we don't get a whole lot from, I guess, of his viewpoints and from his perspective as much. Another character that I'm just briefly going to touch on is a luck dragon. For some reason, I can't remember his name right now, but he is Falkor. There we go, Falkor the luck dragon. He is less significant. He has a few key parts in the story. Basically, he's a luck dragon, so he's always lucky, and he's very optimistic. He's kind of just Atreyu's like best friend sidekick, and he's very sweet. But for me, the most fascinating character was the childlike empress. She's not directly in the story a whole lot, but it is very much implied that her hand is always there guiding everything that happens. And she is very much sort of like a godlike entity, sort of like almost a deity. And because of that, it's very interesting, because some of the things she does don't make sense, and you're wondering, wait, whose side is she on in the end? But the answer is no side. She's above that. She's kind of beyond good and evil, so to speak. And I just really enjoyed that aspect of her. I thought she was very complex and surprisingly deep for a children's book, because this is a middle grade sort of book. And I think my cat, oh, we're good, it was just a cat, we're good. All right, so yes, the childlike empress is a very deep character, and I really appreciated how much she made me kind of think on her throughout the story, even though she wasn't in it as much as the other characters. All right, so yeah, that is my review of the Neverending Story. I enjoyed it. Definitely don't try to read too much of it at once, because the plot, it did become exhausting to me. But all in all, I would still recommend it, and I still consider it a enjoyable book. It is definitely a nostalgic read for me. I read it as a child. But yeah, I hope that you found this review helpful. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments below, and I will see you around.